Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. Google Podcasts is going away soon, so we recommend if you're on Android to check out Spotify, also the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Of course, we are available on Apple Podcasts. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our new Discord, $2.99 per month, and that's where you can communicate with us and others who follow the Heat all day long. Get away from the clutter of Twitter. Check it out. Again, Off the Floor. We've got 10 channels there. The link is right here in the description on the podcast feed, the YouTube channel, and pinned to the top of the Five Reasons Twitter page. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. That includes our friends over at Prize Picks. We know that it's been suspended in the state of Florida for the time being. We also know we've got a lot of Heat fans that follow us from outside the state of Florida in less fascist places. So if you're in one of those 31 states, check it out. Use the code 5, F-I-V-E. Get your initial deposit matched up to $100. That's right. You put down 10 up to 100, they'll match whatever it is, and you can use it right away. So go to prizepicks.com, the Google Play Store, or the Apple App Store. Again, use the code FIVE5 to start playing. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yikes. Five on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all banned. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. Inspire, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the Five Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. We got Greg Sylvander. You can follow, at Greg Sylvander. We weren't exactly sure what we were going to podcast about today, but Anthony Chang, our friend over at the Miami Herald, has given us the topic. So credit to Anthony for digging into this and getting some answers where it's been hard to get answers on this over the past couple of weeks, I can tell you, because we've both been trying. We knew that things were not going well with Tyler Herro. That was blatantly obvious. Whenever the Heat go dark on these situations, that's a good indicator. I go back to Dion Waiters, Justice Winslow, many of these other cases. They just don't like to talk about injuries. Used to have Mike Miller tell me in the locker room that he was going between games to fly for an epidural during the playoffs, and the Heat were saying there was nothing wrong with him. I also remember the 2010 locker room in Boston after the Heat got eliminated. Dwayne and that group got eliminated by the Celtics, and a Heat official coming up and saying, "Oh, Quentin Richardson's having surgery on his thumb tomorrow." We never knew that Quentin Richardson had a thumb injury. So, again, when it comes to injuries, there's a lot of speculation, and we end up having to fill in the gaps. So, Anthony did fill in some of the gaps here. And, Greg, honestly, the news isn't good. I mean, and there's really no way around this because we've done so many of these Tyler Herro podcasts this year. And I feel like all I've done all year is defend him. And that's not to say he's done anything wrong. He hasn't. But I've been defending against this narrative of injury prone, right? Like, you say guys had freak injuries, right? Diving for a loose ball, he gets hurt, steps on a foot, he gets hurt. But at a certain point, availability is an ability. And we are at that stage. And so, Greg, maybe you can go through some of this that Anthony got into, and then we'll get into the repercussions. But to me, a bridge has been crossed here, and we're going to talk about where they go from here.
Yes. Shout out to Anthony. It was great reporting by the Herald here. Basically, the key points are his return is not imminent. He's missed the last 10 games, and he received this is where it gets interesting, platelet-rich plasma injection on Friday to treat his injured right foot and will be reevaluated in 1 to 2 weeks. And this is a situation where everybody wondered, because remember, he left that game with the knee, and we all were like, okay, there's a hyperextension of the knee or something like that. It appears as if that was initially the injury here. And what got weird was over All-Star break, something happened. And I remember Tyler tweeted, that can be a tongue twister, an emoji that I don't know if it was a face palm emoji. So it's escaping me at the moment now what exactly it was. But I start to connect the dots here, and I see what happened. It's essentially he had a knee injury that he's already healed from. And in the midst of that, this foot thing happened, and it happened again, I guess, as this is a reoccurring thing. And so that's where it starts to get a little bit, for me, concerning, because a foot is a bad place to have an injury. And if this is something that has came up again, because this is many times now we've talked about a foot in some capacity, that starts to get a little tricky and scary, I think.
And that's kind of what I've been talking about when it comes to injury prone, because when you have one-off injuries, it is what it is. I mean, and then it becomes, okay, when does he come back? And there are a couple of things that have played into this. One is, if this is a recurring injury, that's a little more frustrating, because then obviously, he may have issues with this in the future again. Okay. I mean, look, basketball is an impact sport. People don't talk about like a contact sport, but it's an impact sport. Your foot is hitting the floor. Okay. Every time that you're on the court. And so this is something that he's got to deal with. And look, he's not the first to ever deal with foot injuries. Tim Hardaway dealt with foot injuries a lot towards the end of his career. Obviously, Dwayne and Tim dealt with knee injuries. Jimmy has a multitude of things that have happened over the years. But Tyler's 24 years old, right? He's played 36 games. At this stage, he's probably not getting to 40 this year. I mean, it just doesn't look like it. You're talking about a reevaluation, according to Anthony, in 1 to 2 weeks, right? Okay, so that's a reevaluation. That's not he's back on the floor, all right? It's, and again,
correct.
Once he is cleared, then where is his conditioning going to be? Because unlike the hand injury that he suffered, you can't condition the same way when you have a lower extremity injury, right? So
because he's still in pain. We should note that again. He's still in pain.
Still in pain. And so, and then it gets into the whole idea of pain tolerance, the more cryptic stuff, which is pain tolerance and willingness to return when he's not 100%. And all of that. And so part of it is the injuries continue to occur. And then it seems to be that it takes longer for him to get back from some of these than some other guys. I mean, Bam has things, and we're always like, is he hurt? We don't know, but he's playing through it. With Tyler, they tend to be things that keep him out for a longer period of time. Again, I don't like to get into speculating on how hurt a guy is or isn't. This is a bottom line thing at this point, okay? The bottom line is the end of the season is approaching, okay? And this was a huge season for Tyler, just like last year was a huge postseason for Tyler. And now we can say, okay, as long as he's ready for the playoffs and he performs at a high level, then this stuff will get forgotten. And perhaps in a certain sense it will. But I think certain ships have sailed here. I don't think Tyler Herro is a starter for this team right now. I just agree. Right. And you and I both agree. And we've both said over and over, when he returns, he should start. Yeah. But that was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Okay, that's not now or 2 weeks from now. And there's too many factors at play here when you're talking about a guy in Duncan, who has performed well, but has performed better as a starter. I don't think that you can adjust the lineup again. Okay. And then risk losing Duncan and Duncan's rhythm and Duncan's confidence. To me, Duncan Robinson is the starting 2 guard into the foreseeable future. Now, could a change be made in the postseason if they're struggling, they need a jolt or something along those lines? Is this the card that Spoelstra holds in his back pocket? Okay, but you cannot count on Tyler to start the rest of the year, and I don't think you can have the indecision when they've already had this rotation at the 4 this year, and then now they've got a new point guard other than they had last year. You can't, and we obviously know Jimmy's effort wanes from night to night, right? Like, you cannot have a situation where you don't know that Duncan's a starter. Duncan's a starter. Yeah. Like, that's it. He's earned the starting spot this year. He's been the most available player on the team. He's played 60 games. He leads them in games played this year. He's one of only 3 guys who's got a chance to play 70, which is pathetic, to be honest. When you look back, we've talked about the Big 3 era. They all played 70 except Dwayne. Dwayne was right under 70, and everybody was complaining about it. Now nobody plays 70, okay? Or a couple guys plays. Basically, Duncan, Hawkes, and Bam. That's basically it, okay? So I just, to me, that's number one. Duncan's your starter the rest of the year. This isn't about ego at this point. This is just about practicality, right? Correct. I mean, you can't hold the place for Tyler anymore.
No, and that's like a big step, because I think a lot of people thought that there was question marks. I maintain that I thought that Duncan should start, but I thought that Tyler would ultimately still end up getting reinserted back into the starting lineup. After this reporting by Anthony and getting the clarification on precisely what's taking place with him, and the fact that it's a foot, the fact that it's pain, the fact that it's still pain to the point of then needing injections where you'll be followed up on 2 weeks from now as we record this on March 16th? No. There's no going back. You've got your starting 5. I also think this is a situation where, to your point about a team coming together right before the postseason, Nico is your starting 4 too. Like, that's done as well. To me, I don't think you
and just to make one point, he's out against Detroit on Sunday. He tweaked his hamstring. We're wondering why he didn't come back in the game.
Yeah,
and that was why. So it temporarily.
It could be Caleb.
I'm guessing. Well, I think it might actually be Haywood on Sunday.
Oh, good point.
And then Caleb and Huck is still coming off the bench. But yes, I mean, I think that you're looking at Jovic likely being the starter going forward. And look, they need to get some rhythm with that lineup because that lineup overall has not had great numbers. We're talking about the Rozier, Robinson, Butler, Jovic, Bam lineup. So if they're going to roll with it, they need to roll with it and see if it works. And then Caleb and Hawkes, I guess, essentially become wild cards in the front court if you want to throw them in there at some point. And Tyler comes back off the bench. And I'll just put it this way. Would you be surprised if in 2-3 weeks we're getting a release from the Heat saying that Tyler Herro is being shut down for the rest of the season?
No.
Would you be surprised?
Not at all. I don't think the Heat are. And frankly, I felt like this during our post-game show last night. I think I may have even said it. I have to go back and listen again now. I don't think the Heat are counting on Tyler Herro at all for the rest of the season. I think anything he provides now from this point forward is incremental to the total. I think that might have been what I said last night, and I'll say it again.
I think it was.
And so that's where that's a tough spot to be in with Tyler Herro now. The fact that
I believe we both said that last year, Greg. I think we both said the exact same thing last year towards the end. That at a certain point you just got to roll without him, right? Like it doesn't mean you don't value him. Like this is the problem with this whole conversation, and why it's gotten so toxic, because there are people that are so polarized on both sides of it. You can't get into the practicality of it without people thinking that you're disparaging someone or sunshine pumping them one way or the other. Like it's just you can't. Like it's just the Tua thing. Okay, it's the same thing. This is not an indictment of Tyler. Like people has a foot injury. Like I mean, people get hurt. It happens. Okay, it doesn't mean he's a bad person. It doesn't mean he's not trying. It doesn't mean he's too focused on Instagram. Like I'm seeing all this silly stuff on social media. It's not that. It just comes down to this. You're in the business of trying to win championships. Okay. You have a certain salary cap and luxury tax that you're allotting to your players to try to win a championship. Other teams are competing against you with the same basic parameters, maybe a little bit more on the luxury tax, maybe a little bit less, but the same basic parameters. If you have $28 to $30 million of your cap and a skilled player who has some talents that others on the roster don't have, and that player is not available to you on a consistent basis, the facts of that are, A, you've got to move on with what you've got now, and B, you got to look at moving on with something else in the future. It's just that's not. I mean, because I'm looking at the numbers now. Look, Zion, okay? Last 3 seasons, he's played 145 games. Tyler's played 169. Only 24 more games than Zion over the last 3 seasons. And Zion has 16 left that I assume he's going to play the majority of them because the Pelicans are in the middle of that race, right? Again, knock on something that Zion doesn't get hurt. What is the narrative on Zion? He's never on the floor, right? Like, so that's where we're at. And I know this sounds like a flip for me because, again, I've been the one saying, don't blame Tyler for the injury. I don't blame him. That's not it. I'm not saying anything negative about him. But you're right. The team has to move on like he is not part of it. They just do. Like it's not, you can't. I mean, he's going to end up playing less than half the season.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll get into a little bit more of the long-term thing on the other side of this. We do want to mention a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our friends over at Water Cleanup of Florida. We tell you about them all the time, based at Boca Raton. Michael Robert and his team. If you got any kind of leaks in your place, get it taken care of right away. Don't wait, okay? Contact them at WCU. That's WCUFL.com. Again, that's WCUFL.com. Your one-stop water and mold cleanup shop. Again, get the leaks fixed after the fact. They can help you take care of it with the insurance company before the fact. They can make sure you don't get to that point. Okay. Really good people, huge Miami Heat fans. They cover you every step of the way. So check them out, WCUFL.com. Water cleanup of Florida. If you've got the schmutz,
they got the guts.
All right. So let's figure out how they handle this now. If Duncan is your starting two, you lean more into Rozier now, right? Like Terry can do some of the things that Tyler can do, some not as well, some better, but his usage has been going up already.
It's got to go up more.
I would go up more, right?
The greenest of green lights for Terry Rozier. He needs to take over this team offensively until Jimmy is fully engaged. I think he needs to be the linchpin of the offense along with Bam and Duncan. Like, those are the guys. He's the one who can create. He can get to the cup. As much as his finishing has not been great historically throughout his career, he's the guy who can get there for you. So you got to go with him. And he's finished okay for the Heat as well. And I also think that there's other offensive points to his game that I didn't think were as good as they are, like his passing ability. Sometimes he's a bit too unselfish. That needs to go away. It's time for Terry Rozier to just engage in that way, play loose, don't think about it, and go. It wouldn't make me upset if he all of a sudden was leading the team in field goal attempts a game here or there. Like, let's go. And to that point, I also think that it'll be interesting to see now. Everybody's talked about why Patty Mills was brought in alongside DeLon Wright. I think that now we get an idea of why, because that there was two guards that they were not going to count on for the rest of the year, Jay Rich and Tyler. So that makes sense there. And I just wonder, does DeLon, when does he get a look? Does he stick with Patty Mills? Does it matter once we get to the playoffs? Maybe not, but for the balance of the regular season, I think it does. And so it'll be interesting to see if DeLon gets another opportunity here with Patty being a bit uneven recently after the fast start.
Well, and Alex made the point that he thought he was leaning more into Patty than DeLon because they were missing Tyler shooting. So to go to Patty, by the way, we'll have Patty on the podcast early next week, likely on Tuesday. So we'll get to talk to him directly. Of course, we've already had DeLon on the pod. I think a higher volume for Rozier makes sense. The other thing is he doesn't turn the ball over, and he gets to the line. And so that is actually something that Tyler was not doing. So that should help them. I mean, Terry's already had 3 games of more than 10 free throw attempts since he's joined Miami. At a time that Jimmy's having trouble getting to the line and Bam is struggling from the line, that's actually a good thing that the ball will be on Terry's hands a little bit more. All right, before we close here, let's say Tyler's back a week before the end of the regular season ends. Okay. Gets a couple games in. Again, they may be fighting for the 6th seed at that point. Like, they may be fighting to stay out of the play-in. So it's good. This is why I'm saying, like, it's hard to find the insertion point for Tyler, like where he can go in and just have like this weekend in Detroit. Like, this is perfect. Okay. This would have been great for him to get his win back. Okay. Run around a little bit. Okay. Get some shots up. Not going to be like that at the end of the year. They're not playing great teams, but the games are all meaningful towards the end of the year. Not going to stick him in a play-in. Okay. But let's say that he gets minutes off the bench. I mean, can they bring? I mean, it's a lot of talent they'd be bringing off the bench if you're talking about Love, Caleb, Jaquez, and Herro, right? Like, that's. I mean, before we get to Mills or DeLon or Highsmith or anybody else, but if you're keeping the same starting lineup, does that even work? Is that too much? I mean,
that's the bulk of your minutes. I think to your point, Jovic probably doesn't get a ton of minutes, even though he starts in that scenario with all those guys coming off the bench, and. That's essentially your rotation is what you're talking about. Because I do think for the Heat to ultimately challenge Boston, if that's really what the goal still is to take a damn shot at the top seed and take a damn shot at whoever you get in the first round. But I think that they really have bigger aspirations than that. You're going to need Tyler. So I do think that, like, if he is back before the regular season ends, even though it's not necessarily I'm not going to say necessarily. It's not ideal to have to insert him back into this mix. I think ultimately to get where you want to go, you're going to need him. So you do it and you throw caution to the wind. You find a way, but it's off the bench. Cannot clarify that enough. And then you just try to see if he is sharp enough and coherent enough in the offensive schemes where everybody's still looking like they're playing together that it works. And it's a tough thing to balance, but that's why you pay Eric Spoelstra what you pay him, because I don't see them being able to reach the mountaintop without Tyler playing and them getting something from that percent of his salary cap. Like, let's just be honest. So I think you got to put him back in the mix, even though it complicates the hell out of everything.
So I know people are going to want us to do the hour-long episode about what this means for Tyler Herro's future with the organization, but we're going to save that. I feel like, I mean, obviously it's to be a discussion point for us on Off the Floor and other places, but I really think we need to see when he comes back and what he looks like and what he contributes, and give him, the full opportunity to make a difference for this team in a positive way. And just the thing I want to close with is he wants to play. Like, that's the narrative that bothers me. Okay. Like, he's not looking to collect a check. He's not like, the kid loves playing basketball. Like, he's 24 years old, but sometimes it's just like fit, timing, all that kind of stuff. It doesn't work out. And I wanted it to work out for him this year, but this is a tough spot, not his fault. But the organization, it's a business, and like I said, availability is an ability. You can't make the team from the tub, right? Like, that's what they say. They need to move forward. Duncan Robinson's your 2-guard the rest of the year. Tyler comes back. He's just got to find a way to fit his game in. That's it. That's it. Like, it's not Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler. Not when Tyler misses half a season. It's Jimmy and Bam, and everybody needs to kind of figure out how to supplement them to make this thing work. All right, we'll be back obviously on Sunday. The Detroit game, and then we'll focus on this more as the week goes on. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and Off the Floor. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.